Are your year-end goals crushing you, or are you crushing them?
Woohoo!
Hey, we all want to finish out the homeschool year strong and positive, but sometimes when we get to that year-end assessment thing, we realize we didn't accomplish what we meant to, right? But hey, don't be discouraged. Today, I have got positive solutions for you to those common downers, right? Those things that make us feel kind of inferior at the end of the school year and may even make you wonder if you are homeschooling the right way. Nope, we're going to deal with all of that stuff. Plus, I've got some finish strong tips for you. Hey, no matter how your school year went, good, bad, or indifferent, you can still put a positive spin on it. And you can turn this into this. So, hey, let's get started.
Oh no!
So now we're talking about that unfinished curriculum, that stack of books, maybe, that has not been finished. What are you going to do with that? And that can really freak you out because you're thinking, oh my gosh, our school year's never going to end because we have stuff we didn't finish, right? Well, first thing to do with those unfinished books, and especially math books, are going to fall into this category, by the way, because those are commonly the things that don't get finished. Okay. You're going to do an assessment. But instead of assessing with unfinished books, what went wrong, why didn't you finish it? That's not really the point of this one. For the assessment here, you're looking at how does this affect our coming school year, our next school year, because that's the important point. And really, you're going to have three answers to this question. The first is it doesn't affect anything at all because all the important parts got done. The second is it affects next year somewhat because we still have a few key lessons that didn't get done. Or we have the third category, which is the yikes category, meaning this has to be completed before the next level of whatever this is can start, because your student's going to need the material covered and solidly mastered before they can go on. Okay, so knowing which category then the unfinished book fits into, now we're going to go to our reaction to that, and we're going to be proactive with it. And we're going to say, okay, so what do I need to do based on how this affects next year? Well, guess what? If it's in the not at all category, right, you're going to put it away and call it done. You're going to write done right across the front of that consumable workbook in magic marker because it's done and put away. If it falls into the somewhat category, and this is somewhat going to influence us next year, then you're going to complete those lessons that absolutely have to get done. Because remember, this was the one where you said, yeah, we had a few key lessons that weren't done. So great. Right now, skip to those key lessons, get them done so that you can close this out and call it good, right? Then there is the yikes category. All right. If your response to that first question was yikes, then you're going to have to do a secondary assessment here. And that means looking at not only the materials you're using right now, but what about the materials you're using next year, and how is next year going to be put together? If you have a child that's younger than high school age, odds are you can actually delay finishing this book and just carry it into next year. It'll all catch up eventually because I'll tell you what, kids finish things at different rates depending on what they are doing and where their skills are at that moment. Just because your kid maybe is slogging through the addition, subtraction, math stage doesn't mean they're going to have that same problem when you get up to fractions. That could go way faster, okay? Or just because they're really struggling through part of their English grammar book that you've got them working in doesn't mean that that's not going to pick up in pace as they get more proficient at this, right? So that's why I say in this age group, the younger than high school, you can pretty much put the old materials away for now and then pick them back up in the fall and just delay then starting the new stuff when you get to it. That's a pretty simple solution, normally works. If you have a high schooler, could be a little different. You're dealing with some timing constraints here. Going back to that math example, if your 11th grader is trying to get to Algebra 2, right? You're going to be going into 11th grade, need to get to Algebra 2, but their 10th grade book, that geometry book, still isn't finished, and you know that needs to get done. Great, then now you're going to look at possibly finishing the geometry book through the summer just to get it done and off the plate so that nothing is behind. So you have a lot of latitude in case something really cool comes up in the high school years and you really want to jump and have your student participate in that activity. But, oh, wait, we're already behind in math. You just can't do that. No, not going to go there. By the way, I just want to make a little note about math books. All math publishers have a common assumption, and that is they assume that this book right here that you're working on this school year is going to be done at the end of the school year, and then there's going to be summer break, and then you're going to start the new book in the fall. That's an assumption they all make. That means, because they know there's been a break of several months, and they know that kids' brains tend to have things falling out of them if it's not being stuffed in every day for a while, they know they need to do review in the beginning of the next book. So keep that in mind when you're assessing, especially that if you think the book's going to fall into that somewhat affecting next year category, yeah, really look at key lessons and weed out, okay, this probably, because it's the very end of the book, is probably going to get covered in the next one, or this is a basic concept that we've already covered that they're reviewing again. We can just review that in the first part of the next book, right? But just saying, with all of this, with unfinished curriculum, do an assessment, figure out how important it is with regard to next year, and then make your plan. And don't look back. I'm telling you, don't look at those books and say, oh, I wish we'd finished them, but I guess we'll just make do. No, this is not that situation. This is, we are done. We are moving on. We are confident. Yes.
Oh, no.
So now we're going to talk about another really negative vibe item that when you come to that end of the year assessment, and that would be goals that have not been met. Ugh, that's always a bad one because it can make you feel like you have not done a good job, when in reality you may have. So give you a couple examples of goals that might not get met. Maybe you decided that you were going to learn a foreign language with your older children, but somehow you never even got started on it, even though you had the curriculum, you just never did it. Or maybe it was you're going to find that perfect chore chart and you're going to stick with it, right? And that didn't happen. So those are things that could happen. Now let's move to assessment. What is it that didn't go right that caused the problem here? And the question you're going to ask yourself is going to be, was the goal realistic? That's really the important question. If the answer to that is yes, the goal was realistic, okay, well, it still didn't happen. So what happened? Why did you go off the rails? Where did that happen? We're going to use the example of a foreign language. Maybe you finally got a hold of the materials you wanted to use the end of November. And then came the holidays, and then came January, and your schedule got packed out, and you just never found a place to put it. Okay, that's what happened. You just tried to start it the wrong place in the year. The timing was wrong. Now you know the goal was realistic, but it just couldn't happen because of the way your schedule was set up. Okay, maybe your answer to that was the goal realistic question is no. And the answer to that you want to find would be why not? Why was it not realistic? Thinking of that perfect chore chart, right? And sticking with it. Okay, maybe in your planning you have 4 children and the oldest is 11 years old. And in your mind, you thought that the 11-year-old was really going to step up this year and help you whip those younger children into shape, right? And then you discovered that the biggest chore you had every day was getting the 11-year-old to do his chores. And that whole plan just fell apart. That plan was not realistic. The goal was not realistic. It was never going to happen. You were optimistic in your planning of it, but it just couldn't happen. So now you know what happened. What was the goal all about? What went wrong there? Now we're going to look at some proactive reaction to it, right? How are we going to keep this from happening again? How are we going to improve on what we know about this problem? Well, going to make notes for the next school year, because I don't know about you, but with me, I tend to remember the good things really well and the bad things not quite so well. So if I wait 3 months and then I'm planning for the next school year, right, and I don't have notes on hand about what went wrong last year, I tend to forget the things that I really ought to be remembering. So going to make some notes for next year. And your notes are going to be based around a couple of ideas. First, if your goal was realistic, but it went off the rails anyway, okay, what is going to be your contingency plan for when that happens? Looking back at that foreign language thing again, maybe your idea is that, okay, when we get the materials and we're going to start mid-year, I'm going to give it a month, and then I'm going to reassess, are we really going to get to this? And then I'm going to say, okay, realistically, it's now been a month. We haven't started it. No, we probably aren't. And I'm just going to put it on a shelf. That way you avoid that blaming game at the end of the year of why you didn't even get started on it. You were realistic in your assessment, right? Okay. If your answer was no, that the goal was not realistic, odds are one of the big problems you had with it, mind you, that the chore chart example is a little bit different, but a lot of times what happens is you made a year-long goal. And the problem with that was that over a year, there's way too much time built into that for things to happen, for too many variables entering into the equation, right? To keep your goals realistic, you're going to want to use a shorter time frame. So when you're planning for next year, maybe you're going to plan your goals 1 month at a time, maybe 2 months, maybe even a whole semester, 12 weeks, right? But that's as far as you're going to go. You're not going to make those big overarching goals for an entire year because those are difficult to hang on to. And you really need to find ways to keep yourself on track and accountable without adding any guilt to your day, because ain't nobody got time for guilt, right? So keep it positive, and keep it proactive, and keep your goals realistic.
Woohoo!
So when I think about finishing the school year strong, for me, that translates directly into finishing with that positive attitude. That's right. Finishing knowing that we accomplished what we did, great. It was a blessing to be able to do those things, and we got through it, right? I didn't lock any children in a closet for more than an hour, right? And I could still talk in complete sentences. It was a win all the way around, okay? So when you get to this moment, celebrate. Celebrate the fact that you got through it. And what do we do when we celebrate? Hey, we have a party. That's right, a year-end party for your school year. It can be something as simple as just a little party with your own family out on your lawn or at a park. It can be something great big. It can be a blowout barbecue end of the year thing with the relatives and the friends. It can be whatever you want it to be, but make it a conscious celebration so that your kids can feel that sense of accomplishment, and so can you. That's really important, you know? Then after the party's over, you're going to formally assess what went right for each child this year. You are done with what went wrong. You've already been down that path, right? Now we're going to look at what went right. What were the things that each child accomplished? And by the way, when you do this, make sure there are no comparisons being drawn. You're not thinking about what your oldest child did when they were this age, okay? Instead, you're looking at this individual child, and you're actually going to write down on a piece of paper what went well, what they accomplished this year. Oh my gosh, think about this. Someday, when they are graduating from high school, you can actually hand them a notebook that has year by year, this is what you accomplished each year, and I was so proud of you. What a great gift. You're going to either make it simple. It could be just the kid's name at the top of the page and just a list of the things they got done. You can make an Excel spreadsheet and fill in all the boxes and write down all kinds of things, right? But whatever it is, you're just going to make it a formal assessment so that you can, in those moments in the future when you get super frustrated, you can look at that and say, wait, even last year when nothing went right, it felt like sometimes we still got all this stuff done, right? It's all about your positive attitude. So guess what? You're done with the party. You're done with the formal assessments. Put school to bed. Put it away. Don't deal with it anymore, okay? Just call it what it is, and that is done. Now, I know there are some of you out there right this moment that are saying to me, oh no, we do summer school. Well, for all you summer school moms, I have a few tips to make that transition easier as well. And I'd say this from personal experience because, quite frankly, we always did some school in the summer just because I like to keep the schedule going. I liked the fact that it just didn't deteriorate into a big chaotic mess. I liked having a little structure. School was a good way to ensure that that was happening. But here are my tips for you if you're going to do summer school. First is, you're not going to consider this as just an extension of the school year. Hello, your children are very intelligent, and guess what? They are aware of something called summer vacation. They're aware that every child on the planet that goes to institutional school gets this big chunk of time off called summer vacation. They are also aware that if you're making them work in the midst of that, that's not fair. That's how a child's brain is going to go, just saying. So don't consider it an extension of the school year. It's just a bonus semester, and put it forward as that to your kids. And then you're going to switch to a totally different schedule, a light schedule, I like to call it. You're going to use less time, an hour and a half, 2 hours at most. That's it. That's going to be your school day. You're going to do fun subjects. Let your children pick some delight-directed things they would like to do. Maybe you've got a kid that has this science topic that you never have time for in the school year. Now's a good time to pursue that. Or maybe you've got a child who's very artistic that wants to go through every drawing book on the planet for the summer. Great. That's going to be a course that they can do in the summer months. You're going to encourage those delight-directed things, and that way you're going to be teaching your children a very important thing, and that is that learning happens because we want to know things, not because someone makes us learn it. Wow, what a concept. So the last tip I have for you, summer schoolers, would be this. Make sure that you allow some buffer time off at the beginning of the summer semester and also at the end. In our school year, we generally got done somewhere around the last week of May normally, and then I would take a couple of weeks off, and then we'd get back into it, and then we'd end 1st of August, and we would take all of August off. Did that for years. That worked super well for us because among other things for mom, that meant planning time. Yes, so that I had that month of August where I could have less on my plate and get all my planning for the next school year done and all my materials researched and all that stuff, right? But however that looks, just make sure that you've got that buffer time built in because your kids need to feel that transition. They need to be aware of the fact that now we're going to do something totally different. This is not just an extension. Much happier children, much happier mom, right? So now that we've covered all of that, let's just sum it up and close this out. So thinking about finishing out the end of the school year strong, what's the first thing you're going to do? Yes, this is a quiz. That's right. You're going to assess what didn't go well. You're going to plan proactively for how you're going to avoid those things next year. And then those things are going to be off the plate. You're not going to have to deal with them anymore. You already dealt with that. So now you can focus on the positive stuff. What went right about this year and how can you boost those positive things for next year, right? You're going to celebrate, you're going to have that party, and you're going to close out the school year being proud of what you and your children accomplished this year. So if you enjoyed this video today, please like it and be sure to subscribe, right? Because there's just the smallest possibility that if you do that, that YouTube will decide that this video should be at the very top of the search results instead of the very bottom. Yes, and other people just might see it and be helped. And be sure to join me here next Wednesday for my next video, which will be on the subject of homeschool tips. That is summer reading for every homeschool mom. That's right. That list of books that every homeschooler really needs to read because you will learn so much. The benefits are enormous from reading what others have written on the subject of homeschooling. So remember, here at Homeschool University, we have 3 key strategies. The first is to be practical. That's right, to use the common sense that God gave you. And the next is to be purposeful. Pray with and for your children, and definitely for your homeschool. And the last is to be positive, because you can do this. That's right, because you are amazing.
Hey now, take a step outside and seize the day.